Chapter 36. Jake, bring her back. Wonder Woman tiredly demanded, and as much as I wanted to throw a fucking tantrum and refuse saying how I had been inducted into the Justice League and thus wasn't beholden to the League's charter with the United Nations. I knew that excuse was a paper-thin ruse. And me all but kidnapping a citizen wanted by the nation I was acting in, under the League's umbrella, would only lead to major diplomatic pressure being put on the League to punish me somehow. Fine. I muttered and walked over to the Colonel, who looked just as happy about the situation as I was. Because in reality, the moment the League stepped away, she would be able to mind control whatever poor sap was watching her, and she would be able to walk freely. After giving Encantadora over to the Colonel, who just slapped some cuffs on her for appearances, and I do mean that exactly as who in the hell would cuff people with their hands in front of them. Only non-flight risk targets, that's who, and we all knew she wasn't going to resist as she had a get-out-of-jail-free card. This was my first time facing sheer ineptitude when it came to dealing with villains, as Cheshire, who I all but crippled for the next couple of years, was in a low-security prison due to the fact that I literally pulped her knees and broke several discs in her back when I stomped her chest through a reinforced school classroom door and into a school locker. "Hey, Encantadora. I hope I never see you again," I said with my golden eyes flashing purple with spiritual energy as I did my best to register her soul's size and appearance. If I ran into her again and I didn't have a couple superhumans hanging over my shoulders, I could always throw her into hell early and have her face her true fate at the end of her life. Which, for a devout Catholic like her, that would be a fitting punishment. "The soldiers and Wonder Thong called you Lord, yes?" She spoke confidently as the other soldiers were rounding up the other criminals, and with a loud whooshing noise finally some of the soldiers lit up the gasoline. They poured everyone on the compound. I merely looked at her dully, already done with the femme fatale, and even Galatea giggled at my disregard of the villain. She leaned her back against mine, so she didn't have to lay her back against a dirty tree or something. "Come on. Give me a city where I can come pay you a visit when I am done with my time," she wheedled, and I blinked as I realized she may have been trying to set herself up to be a member of my future gallery of villains. I couldn't help my head turning on its side with my hollow features coming through as I broke my little facade as a normal, human hero. The last actual villainess that offered to stalk and harass me is currently in traction for the next year or so. If you want to hit me up sometime for me to make good on my promise in ruining you, then come to Gotham. I rent a room at the Iceberg Lounge," I said as the Colonel finally dragged off Encantadora, who maintained eye contact with me as the helicopter she was on roared to life and began to fly off, with only her and the soldier flying the helicopter being within it. "Wonder Woman, I am going to clear my head. I will be back at Mount Justice tonight or something," I said, with Diana nodding in understanding at how frustrated I must have been. Diana looked around, and seeing none of the soldiers being within earshot, she patted me on the shoulder and leaned in. "We will catch her soon enough, and her little escape will only reveal the rats who protected her. I will come to debrief you tonight after I escort the prisoners to the military base," Wonder Woman explained before she smiled and asked, "Will you be able to get back home in time?" She asked, obviously wondering if I was going to pull a Flash or Superman and just fly back to the US. I had so much pent-up feelings boiling in my guts that I ignored the soldiers' reactions as I opened a large garganta, and in my emotional state, it seemed my traveler essence brought the exit of my garganta to the fore, and instead of the hollow technique being a long winding tunnel, it instead became a massive door. And where did the door I opened lead? Before I could even react, a misshapen monster threw itself out of my garganta, screaming and shooting acid everywhere. But once I got my bearings from the surprise of my garganta changing, I wordlessly leaned down and punched my hand into the head of the demon before swinging my arm like a person throwing a bowling ball, launching the demon's corpse back into hell. "I am going to work off some steam," I said as I flicked the steaming, boiling acidic blood off my arm, and with a sonido, I flashed into hell with my garganta closing behind me, much to Wonder Woman's and the Colombian military's shocked face. "So, this is supposed to be hell?" a voice behind me asked, and I froze as I looked behind me, and holding onto my Haori so she could ride along my sonido was fucking Galatea, looking around the blasted hellscape around us. "It's a lot fucking colder than I imagined," she muttered, rubbing her hands together as goosebumps broke out across her exposed skin.